పార్లమెంట్లో కేంద్రం ప్రవేశపెట్టిన ఆర్థిక సర్వేపై వివరాలు వెల్లడిస్తున్న ఆర్థిక శాఖ ముఖ్య సలహాదారులు సుబ్రమణ్యం ఇప్పుడు లైవ్ చూద్దాం.
Investment rates. So the question then arises, how do we generate this? And again in this, a few things come out very clearly. First of all, although FDI does matter, savings is the key driver of this. So domestic savings. Now, again, traditional economics would suggest that savings is influenced by real interest rates, but we show that there is no evidence for this. Savings rates are basically driven by demographics and growth. Now this is interesting because since savings rates are insensitive, relatively speaking, to real interest rates, it means that we are in a position to radically reduce the structure of the cost of capital without influencing savings rates. So this means that what you do is essentially lower the cost of capital. Savings rate continues to rise because of demographics and growth, and this is a very key degree of freedom that you get in order to be able to grow much faster, and every single country seems to do this. I mean, China, for example, had a savings rate of over 50% of GDP, but it had very low interest rates, relatively speaking.
And that was the evidence that we showed. I think it's important to emphasize, therefore, that as I just showed in the slide, it's important to think about the virtuous cycle coming from complementarities, and therefore not thinking in silos. It's a system that is what is driven by investment.
This side, sir. Timothy from CNBC TV 18. My question is on the gears that you have mentioned in the survey. Very clearly you're talking about investments and savings, but the key over here is also jobs. Jobs have been under question over the last few years, and now when you push the idea of jobs, you also mentioned in your slides, in not creating enough jobs when it's the age of firms as compared to the other nations, that is Mexico and US. How would you think India would be able to employ more people, give more jobs so that investments and savings do come in from the people who are the citizens of India and not just the government?
No, I think what is very clear is that when I spoke about the comparison of India with the other countries, this is 7 decades of policies that where we've really fostered these firms that only are very small. In order for job creation to happen, it's the young firms that grow and become bigger, exploit economies of scale. Those are the firms that really create jobs, and that's why if you remember the slide that I showed you, when we compared the United States, Mexico and India, is these firms as they age there, they create a lot of jobs. In India, because we have these size-based incentives, so when you have a size-based incentive, for instance, let's say you have, these are for firms that have more than 100 employees. The size-based incentives are only for firms that say less than 100 employees. What firms then do is, once they grow to 95, they actually try and create another firm in order to continue having that benefit. And that is what creates the perverse incentive, because they don't grow enough, they're not able to exploit the economies of scale, and thereby they're not able to create enough jobs. One other important feature here is that small firms, there is as much job destruction there as there is job creation. And therefore the net job creation in those firms is not as much as it is in the large firms. So the key message there is what we really need to be focusing on in order for job creation to happen is unshackling these MSMEs, enabling them to grow by taking out these policies, focusing on young firms which can actually grow into large firms and thereby create jobs and export to the economy.
I'd like to add one more finding that is there, which will be non-intuitive to people who are reading more conventional economic news. A lot of economic policy making in India and economic literature in India spend a lot of time on what is a labor-intensive and a capital-intensive mode of production. I'm sure those who have done economics degrees will have read plenty of papers about this. One of the findings here is that, in fact, we should be completely agnostic about this. Because when you take only a particular activity in a silo, does it matter? If you take the entire value chain, in fact, it doesn't really matter, because you need to create, you employ people in order to create the capital goods, you employ jobs, you create jobs in order to do the research. So the entire value chain, therefore, cannot be in any meaningful way thought of as either labor intensive or capital intensive. And one good example again is China. Extremely capital intensive expansion. I mean, about half of its economy was being invested every year over the last 20 years. And yet, this is the same country that ended up creating hundreds of millions of jobs. Now, clearly, the point here is that what really matters is whether or not the investment is efficient and internationally competitive. It doesn't really matter whether or not it is specifically capital or labor intensive. This siloed, static approach we need to break out of.
And I think let me just add an example here. Think about the ATMs, right? When tellers were replaced by ATMs. When you think about in that silo of just the ATM, taking out cash, it may seem like jobs are being lost because ATMs came and actually replaced the tellers. But when you take into account the entire value chain, which is the chain of those ATM machines being built, the R&D for that, transporting those ATM machines, the cash being put in, or similarly think about today, a Swiggy, they're replacing eating, let's say, at home. There are jobs being created. When you look at it in the entire value chain, instead of looking, it may seem like if you look at it in the silo that jobs are being replaced because of investment. But when you look at it in the full value chain, jobs indeed are created, and that's the evidence that I just showed that when investment goes up, unemployment rate actually goes down, and that's the key point to keep in mind here.
We'll take a question. Subramanian, I'm Rahul Srivastava from India Today Television. I have two questions. The gentleman who presented the last economic survey just recently sounded extremely unconvinced about the very data which came with it. And I don't think there has been any economic survey in the last few years with as much domestic discord and international scrutiny. Now, how convinced are you about your vision and the data which comes with it? One. And what
let me respond right away.
Can I finish my second question? Then you can. The second question is, when you talk about silos and virtuous cycle, what are the silos which have been dismantled but still exist? And is there a virtuous cycle absent today?
So, I think on your first question, there's a lot that's been written. What I want to do is focus on the ideas that we are bringing to try and make a break and really put the economy on the sustained 8% growth path. So let me respond to the second part of your question, which is the virtuous cycle that we are talking about is to ensure that we don't create these silos. We think about demand, jobs, investment, savings, all of them as a system that is driven by investment as the key driver. In other words, what we are saying is let investment, private investment increase. That investment will make firms more productive, will thereby bring jobs and also enhance exports because our firms will be able to compete better in the international market. And thereby, you will have demand increasing because purchasing power will, land up in the hands of the bottom of the pyramid. And that demand will then, anticipation of that will lead to investment. So the point is, rather than looking at solving each of these problems in a silo in a different way, let's think about it collectively with investment as the key driver. Let's get investment going. The others, because of their complementarities, will start flowing.
And basically we show that this is essentially the only way it's ever been done. So that's why a lot of evidence has been put together to show that, particularly from East Asia, we have of course talked of China, but it's true of many of the other East Asian countries. It's the only way it's ever been done. Use very high investment rates to cut through the silos and get the whole machine moving again.
Correct.
Sir, I'm Ashutosh from BTVI News Channel. First of all, I congratulate you for your first survey. Very importantly, you have put a lot of emphasis on investment in your survey. You have also reiterated the fact that investment has to come. But the thing is that in the private sector investments are down in the last 5 years. We all know that investment has to pick up. But from where does this investment come, sir? We have been depending on public spend in the last 5 years. Recently, RBI's rate cuts are not being passed on for the consumer to spend or for the investments to be made. So it's very appreciable that investment has to come and the cycle has to grow, but from where and how?
So we focused on trying to lay out the model for the economy to grow on that path of 8% sustain, and we talked about investment as a critical element and the key driver of that. Happy to engage on what are the aspects. I'll just lay out a couple of them. We focused on trying to ensure that the model is first understood before talking about some of the details. One key aspect we've talked about the cost of capital, which is really important because investment cannot go up unless the cost of capital increases. One opportunity that we have, investment cannot go up unless the cost of capital goes down. One key opportunity that we have is that the cost of capital internationally is quite low. Liquidity is very high there, and as a result, there is opportunity both for the firms and for possibly the sovereign as well to think about going and raising money